Well, hello guys, and welcome once again to another edition of Wrestling Man's Retro Reviews. This is the series dedicated to Coliseum home videos, and this is a very special one because this happens to be, unfortunately, the last episode that I'm going to do until the fall season begins. Now, this show helps to convince you, the people, to try and find old Coliseum home videos, either be it on Amazon or on eBay, wherever, and you can see why Coliseum videos were the bomb back in the day. Well, this one that I'm going to do, let me just put it in an old saying that AC/DC used to say: if you want blood, you've got it. Because this review is inside the steel cage. I know, unfortunately, I got the one that cut off some of the case, but that's what you get when you get these videos. So this is an entire video devoted and dedicated to the steel cage match. And yes, every match on this videotape is held inside of the steel cage. Your hosts for this tape, it's a very odd pairing. Gorilla Monsoon and luscious Johnny Valiant. Pretty odd couple. So anyway, we have on this videotape a total of 9 steel cage matches. Is it worth getting? Well, let me go right into the review, and maybe I'll try to convince you to buy it, and maybe I won't. We start off this videotape with Andre the Giant against Big John Studd. Now, during the early 80s and even up to the mid-80s, Andre the Giant and Big John Studd would just have match against match against match all over the place. Well, here, these two meet inside of a steel cage. Now, we joined this match already in progress at the Capitol Center. I miss that place. Anyway, now this was well before the first WrestleMania and well before, Bobby Heenan came along. But this is an interesting match because, John Studd bleeds and, they're just going at it. I like the end of the match. Andre body slams John Studd, gets $10,000 at the time, apparently. And then to finish off John Studd, he goes all the way to the top rope. Now, imagine Andre the Giant going to the top rope. He takes the leap of faith, I guess we could call it, jumps off the top rope, does a big splash onto John Studd. That pretty much does it. Andre walks out of the cage and is declared the winner. Now we go to another match, and again, it's Andre the Giant. However, this time he is taking on Kamala. Now, this is an interesting match for the fact that this is Kamala, and there really isn't that much footage that is known of with Andre the Giant and Kamala going against each other, which I have to admit, I sort of enjoyed these two competing against each other. And basically, you have the same finish. Andre the Giant slams Kamala, and then Andre climbs the top rope and hits the Giant Splash on Kamala, walks out of the cage, even though Kamala's handler, Friday, yes, he was called Friday at the time, tried to block the door, but could not do it. Then we go to perhaps the most famous steel cage match in wrestling history. Don Muraco against Jimmy Snuka for the Intercontinental title. I think just about by now, every wrestling fan that has existed has seen this steel cage match at some point in their life. Now we get to the middle of the match, which is a little bit interesting, that they join us in the middle of the match. But I can understand why, and Don Muraco gets the win after Snuka headbutts him, and the headbutt sends Muraco over the top. but it was enough for Morocco to yell to get the door open, and he rolls out, wins the match. Snuka's upset, brings him back in the ring, and then the Superfly leap off the top of the cage, which influenced Mick Foley. Now, our next match is a very interesting match. Randy Macho Man Savage teaming up with Adrian Adonis against Tito Santana and Bruno Sammartino. Yes, this is a tag team steel cage match, an oddity at its time in the day of professional wrestling. Of course, nowadays, you could see a tag team steel cage match come up every once in a while, but back in the day, this match was very unusual. And I have to admit, of these steel cage matches on this videotape, this had to be my favorite of these steel cage matches. For the fact that, number one, it's a tag team match, which means who knows what to expect. And then, number two, the fact that you could have all these talented guys mixed up in the one makes it great. And there are a couple of cool points in this match, such as Savage and Adonis are trying to both get out of the cage at the same time. Savage is trying to get out through the door. Adonis attempts to climb over the top of the cage. And then there's another point where Adonis climbs the top of the cage, attempts a big splash on the Sammartino, but Sammartino rolls out of the way and Adonis misses. The end of the match comes when Santana is trying to get out of the cage. Savage and Adonis are preventing him, but Sammartino comes. He knocks down Adonis, and then he grabs Savage, and he sends Savage into the cage. And they both go out of the cage. Sammartino through the door, Santana over the top, and Tito and Bruno get the win. Then we go to another steel cage match. Well, it is inside the steel cage, where Tito Santana faces Greg the Hammer Valentine for the Intercontinental title. Now, I reviewed this match in a previous video, WWF's Grudge Matches, and you know, the heat is there. There's a lot of good build-up. And I got to say, this is a good match for its time, for its day, with the crowd being very excited. You could tell that the fans were really into it for pretty much the duration of the match. Santana gets the win as he's climbing out. Valentine attempts to go through the door. However, Santana kicks the door in, knocks Valentine down. Santana jumps down, wins, is the Intercontinental Champion. And then we go to a very rare match, and I really don't think that this match will air on WWE On Demand anytime soon. Bruno Sammartino defending the WWF Heavyweight title against George the Animal Steele in a steel cage match. Yes, folks, George the Animal Steele was the #1 contender for the title. Now, this has to be the oldest piece of film that they had at the time, or one of the oldest pieces of film at the time. Now, I can't put an exact date to when this match happened, but I can tell you it seems late 60s, early 70s. So, I'd venture to say it was at some point during Bruno's first reign as the champion. What's interesting about this match, and Gorilla Monsoon and Johnny Valiant were pointing this out because they did commentary for this match, was that neither man were really attempting to escape the cage during the match. They were just basically fighting in the cage. They were just going to beat each other up and then get out, which is a very different idea. It's almost a reverse idea in wrestling where, you know, you're in a cage match and you try to get yourself out of the cage first. Bruno and George in this situation were fighting each other, wasn't thinking about, I got to get out of the cage first before the other guy does. They just were fighting each other until one of them could not compete anymore, and it ended up being Bruno winning the match after he sends George Steele not only into the post, but also in the corner of the cage about 2 or 3 times. Then we have Bruno Sammartino again, where this time he is facing Roddy Piper. Now, Roddy Piper gets instant heat for this match because this happened after Super Bowl 20, and Piper has on a Chicago Bears shirt, hangs a poster of William the Refrigerator Perry up on one side of the cage, and another poster of Jim McMahon on the other side of the cage to pretty much piss off the New England Patriot fans. Now, this match is sort of okay, although Piper bleeds within the first 2 minutes of the match. And that's one thing I want to point out. Basically, every match, somebody bleeds. That's why I said in the beginning, if you want blood, you've got it. The end of the match is a very weird ending. And you could tell that this was sort of planted, because Bruno's attempting to get out of the cage. Piper's got him. Bruno grabs one of the wooden chairs that they used to have in the Boston Garden, hits Piper with the chair twice, and that's enough for Bruno to get out of the cage. Now, after the match, Jesse Ventura, who was doing commentary for the match, he was like, are they going to even allow this? Is this even, right? Well, it's a steel cage match, so they'd have to let it go. So now we go to a very good steel cage match. Bob Backlund against Pat Patterson. This match for the WWF title. Now, this match, since this videotape has been released, which has been over 25 years, has been on the 2 other steel cage releases that WWE has put out since this video was first released in 1986. It has been on the Bloodbath DVD and the Greatest Cage Matches DVD. And you can see why. This is a good steel cage match. It's a very exciting steel cage match. Pardon me. Where, it's like Patterson's trying to get out, but Backlund gets there just in time. And then Backlund's trying to get out, but Patterson gets there just in time. They do this, they do that, they do this, they do that. And the end of the match comes where Backlund is trying to get out through the door. Patterson grabs Backlund by the feet. Backlund kicks him off once. Patterson comes back. Backlund kicks him off a second time, and it's long enough for Backlund to escape the cage and win the match. The one thing I do want to point out, and I hate to admit this, but this is something that I have to point out as a fan. The only way to win is when both feet hit the floor. He went sliding backwards down the stairs, like his head hit the floor first. But Backlund does get the win, stays champion. And then the finale of this videotape takes us to WrestleMania 2, Hulk Hogan against King Kong Bundy in the cage match. This is the first WrestleMania where the WWF title is defended, and is also the first, and still to this day, only WrestleMania with a steel cage match. They've had 2 Hell in a Cells and only 1 steel cage match. But anyway, basically it goes into the storyline of what happened on Saturday night's main event back in March, where Hulk Hogan's ribs were crushed by King Kong Bundy and the Avalanche. Now, one thing I want to point out is, and you can pull out your copy of WrestleMania 2 just to watch it. You don't have to get this tape to hear what I'm going to say, but you got Elvira there as one of the guests for WrestleMania 2. And, the whole gimmick of, she's she likes the horror movies and stuff. And she's like, when are they going to stop? This has got to stop! And we're like, it can't stop. It's a cage match until somebody leaves. So, I'm sitting there thinking like, Elvira, you like the horror movies. Why are you saying, why don't they stop this? But anyway, Hogan does win when he climbs out of the cage. And then after the match, he attacks Bobby Heenan. So, what's my thought on Inside the Steel Cage? Well, it's not the greatest, but it is a good videotape. One thing that I do have to give the people at Coliseum Video credit for is how they transitioned into certain wrestlers throughout the videotape. Like Andre the Giant right at the beginning, Tito Santana and Bruno Sammartino in the middle, and then the conclusion with the 2 title matches in the steel cage. Plus, it doesn't hurt that you got Gorilla Monsoon there as the host and Johnny Valiant as the co-host. So all in all, this is a good tape. I definitely recommend you guys try and find it. If you're a lover of steel cage matches, this is a very good piece of, film to have in your home video library. Now, one thing I do want to say before I wrap this up is, since this videotape was released, there have been tremendous steel cage matches, some that are probably better than the 9 that were on this videotape, but it should be noted that these steel cage matches, and there are some that are influential, helped make the steel cage matches of today what they are. On one more thing before I leave, I just want to point this out for the record. I did an episode of That Wrestling Show back in the fall, I think it was, about the steel cage matches. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I prefer the blue steel cage that they used to have in the 80s and the 90s than the regular old steel cage. I don't know, it's just me. I just prefer it. Well, that will do it for this edition of Wrestling Man's Retro Review. Now, I will be back in the fall to review more Coliseum home videos. And also, don't forget to check out my other videos right here on this YouTube page. And don't forget to subscribe. If you subscribe, you get many videos like this and more. Until next time, this has been Wrestling Man's Retro Review. So long, everyone.